Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Literary Lore. Today, we're completing our series on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. We're finally here. We'll be tackling chapter 23 all the way to its grim conclusion. Like most literary works we'll be covering on this channel, it is in the public domain and easily accessible for free with a quick search. I have included a link to the novel in the description. When last we saw Victor, he had finally married Elizabeth, and so this chapter begins with his honeymoon, along with his cousin wife. But instead of enjoying the dark and stormy night with her, he's focused on the creature's promise that I will be with you on your wedding night. Victor paces throughout the inn. He's brandishing a pistol, scaring the other guests. He sends Elizabeth to her room so she doesn't have to witness the carnage that is about to unfold. Naturally, his hunt is interrupted by a horrible scream. Great God, why did I not then expire? Why am I here to relate the destruction of the best hope and the purest creature on earth? She was there, lifeless and inanimate, thrown across the bed, her head hanging down and her pale and distorted features half covered by her hair. Everywhere I turn, I see the same figure, her bloodless arms and relaxed form flung by the murderer on its bridal bier. Could I behold this and live? Alas, life is obstinate and clings closest where it's most hated. For a moment only did I lose recollection. I fell senseless on the ground. So after fainting, Victor has a chance to inspect the body. We again see the black mark on her neck, just like William and Henry bore. The creature has stolen her from him. I say stolen because, as you may recall, Victor doesn't really prescribe much autonomy to her. Her value was entirely dependent on her use to him. I'm going to also take this moment to point out that Victor, while misogynistic to a degree, is much more just an absolute jerk. He treats everyone as tools. Corpses are simply to be sourced for components. The creature, his creation, his responsibility, it's his property. It all comes down to control. Victor craves mastery of all things. Similarly, from a young age, his mother told him that Elizabeth belonged to him. She was destined to be his wife, and nowhere do we see any indication that he must strive for that claim. It's the love he was owed, the conquest he deserved. They were taken by the creature. The scene was reportedly inspired by a painting known as The Nightmare. It depicts an incubus sitting on the chest of a woman in the throes of a nightmare. For those who don't know, an incubus is essentially a male succubus. Incubi have a long and deep cultural background across a variety of regions. But the basic idea is that it is a demon that saps the life from victims through sexual activity. These entities were blamed for things such as sleep paralysis, birth deformities, and most disturbingly as cover-ups for raping people in their sleep. With that in mind, we take the moment the creature murders Elizabeth and apply a sexual component to the action. So not only is he depriving Victor of a companion in the same way Victor did to him, but he is also taking Elizabeth on their wedding bed before Victor has a chance to do so himself. It is a deeply violating action made more visceral and demeaning by the background afforded to it. But even through this course of events, we can see a possible interpretation of Shelley's message. These monsters disregard the autonomy of others, but this evil is inflicted on women in a capacity that at the time would be normalized. Yet we are not meant to resonate with the plight of Frankenstein. In case it wasn't clear by now, he's the protagonist, but he's not a good guy. By treating everyone as objects, there is an irony that something cobbled from lifeless husks would be his undoing. He granted personhood to something that was never meant to live, something he created with the express purpose of serving him. Yet now he has nothing. His father dies of grief, and Ernest doesn't count for much because Victor resolves to chase the creature to the ends of the earth. It's worth knowing that at this point, Victor did try to tell a magistrate about the creature in the hopes that an army could take down the monster for him, and naturally they turn him away. But, hey, at least he actually told someone about it this time. This all leads to the final chapter, a lengthy one for sure. Victor begins his quest for revenge by visiting the Frankenstein cemetery, and while there he prays, but who does the man who believed he could be God pray to? The deep grief which this scene had at first excited quickly gave way to rage and despair. They were dead, and I lived. Their murderer also lived, and to destroy him I must drag out my weary existence. I knelt on the grass and kissed the earth, and with quivering lips exclaimed, "By the sacred earth on which I kneel, by the shades that wander near me, by the deep and eternal grief that I feel, I swear, and by thee, O night, and the spirits that preside over thee, to pursue the demon who caused this misery, until he or I shall perish in mortal conflict. For this purpose I will preserve my life. To execute this dear revenge will I again behold the sun, and tread the green herbage of earth, which otherwise should vanish from my eyes forever. And I call on you, spirits of the dead, and on you, wandering ministers of vengeance, to aid and conduct me in my work. Let the cursed and hellish monster drink deep of agony. Let him feel the despair that now torments me." So he basically prays to the spirits of the dead. He is fully disconnected from the natural realm and is essentially a living man filled with legions of dead. He's a monstrous inversion of his own creation, which is a collection of corpses endowed with life. This scene is immediately followed by the creature appearing and then laughing at him, because he was listening to him the entire time. He encourages him to burn his life away chasing him. Across the Mediterranean, through Russia, he follows him. The creature leaves food, just enough food, so that he can continue his relentless pursuit. Eventually, the account catches up to Walton's introduction. This has brought our tale full circle. The bookends of the story have finally showed up. We started with Walton, we're ending with Walton again. So Victor finishes his account and he begs Walton to kill the monster for him. Now remember, the reason Victor said that he wanted to share his tale with Walton was because they shared the same madness. He found in him a kindred spirit and wanted to help him avoid the same mistakes. However, upon discovering that Walton was writing about him, he seems to have forgotten this. "All my speculations and hopes are as nothing, and like the archangel who aspired to omnipotence, I am chained in an eternal hell. My imagination was vivid, yet my powers of analysis and application were intense. By the union of these qualities, I conceived the idea and executed the creation of a man. Even now I cannot recollect without passion my reveries while the work was incomplete. I trod heaven in my thoughts, now exulting in my powers, now burning with the idea of their effects. From my infancy, I was imbued with high hopes and a lofty ambition. But how am I sunk?" Essentially, Victor is just so brilliant and great and generally awesome that there was no way he couldn't create the monster. But an important note here is that he actually admits he overreached. And in another mirror to the monster, he even compares himself to Satan when he compares himself to that archangel. All that said, he sings a completely different tune when Walton's crew tries to convince them all to turn around and leave, to just get out of that whole situation and head back home. So Victor, who barely has the energy to move at this point, basically yells at the crew. "What do you mean? What do you demand of your captain? Are you then so easily turned from your design? Did you not call this a glorious expedition? And wherefore was it glorious? Not because the way was smooth and placid as a southern sea, but because it was full of dangers and terror. Because at every new incident your fortitude was to be called forth and your courage exhibited. Because danger and death surrounded it, and these you were to brave and overcome. For this was it an honorable undertaking. You were hereafter to be hailed as the benefactors of your species, your names adored as belonging to brave men who encountered death for honor and the benefit of mankind. And now, behold, with the first imagination of danger, or, if you will, the first mighty and terrific trial of your courage, You shrink away and are content to be handed down as men who had not strength enough to endure cold and peril, and so, poor souls, they were chilly and returned to the warm firesides. Why, that requires not this preparation. Ye need not have come this far, and dragged your captain to the shame of a defeat merely to prove yourselves cowards. Oh, be men, or be more than men. Be steady to your purposes and firm as a rock. This ice is not made of such stuff as your hearts may be. It is immutable, and cannot withstand you if you say that it shall not. Do not return to your families with the stigma of disgrace marked on your brows. Return as heroes who have fought and conquered, and who know not what it is to turn their backs on their foe. So after everything, after all the death, all the pain, the blasphemy, Victor still completely disregards the life and autonomy of this crew in pursuit of glory. We know that Victor most likely wants him to continue, specifically because the creature lurks deeper among the ice. Despite this, he rouses the men with his words, and it seems he may have successfully doomed them. Walton, though, has learned from Victor's hubris, and he decides that when the ice thaws and releases the ship, that they'll return home. The remaining letter Walton writes closes out the story, and after all this time we finally see the resolution. Walton informs Victor that they are returning, and he tries to hobble out of his bed, finds he lacks the strength. As Victor hastens to his own demise, he admits that he had a responsibility to the creature as its creator. However, he undercuts it immediately, saying he denied it a mate to save the world. You know, because he's such a hero. Obviously, he's just the best of guys. He's so good. So he both pleads with Walton to continue the hunt while admitting he can't really ask that of him. And in case you haven't noticed, this madman is full of contradictions. His last words are as follows: that he should live to be an instrument of mischief disturbs me. In other respects, this hour, when I momentarily expect my release, is the only happy one which I have enjoyed for several years. The forms of the beloved dead flit before me, and I hasten to their arms. Farewell, Walton. Seek happiness and tranquility, and avoid ambition, even if it be only the apparently innocent one of distinguishing yourself in science and discoveries. Yet why do I say this? I have myself been blasted in these hopes. Yet another may succeed. He never could let go of ambition. Even in the end, his last word is one of arrogant hope, of success. Walton mourns the loss of his friend, and in the midst of writing the final letter, he's interrupted by a sound. Upon investigating, he finds the monster looming over Victor. Before he can flee, Walton asks him to stay, and Walton hears the creature speak directly to him for the first time. "That is also my victim," he exclaimed. "In his murder, my crimes are consummated. The miserable series of my being is wound to its close. O Frankenstein, generous and self-devoted being, what does it avail that I now ask thee to pardon me? I, who irretrievably destroyed thee by destroying all thou lovest. Alas, he is cold. You cannot answer me." The creature's creator is dead, the architect of his existence and his misery. The creature only feels despair at seeing his unholy god dead. He expresses remorse for murdering innocents and laments that he had become so wretched. "Once my fancy was soothed with dreams of virtue, of fame and of enjoyment. Once I falsely hoped to meet with beings who, pardoning my outward form, would love me for the excellent qualities which I was capable of unfolding. I was nourished with high thoughts of honor and devotion, but now crime has degraded me beneath the meanest animal. No guilt, no mischief, no malignity, no misery can be found comparable to mine. When I run over the frightful catalogue of my sins, I cannot believe that I am the same creature whose thoughts were once filled with sublime and transcendent visions of the beauty and the majesty of goodness. But it is even so. The fallen angel becomes a malignant devil. Yet even that enemy of God and man had friends and associates in his desolation. I am alone. The creature had no Eve to validate his identity of Adam. But now, he has orchestrated the demise of his creator. He is alone and cannot even compare himself to Satan. His struggle with identity has reached a tragic conclusion. For while I destroyed his hopes, I did not satisfy my own desires. They were forever ardent and craving. Still I desired love and fellowship, and I was still spurned. Was there no justice in this? Am I to be thought the only criminal when all humankind sinned against me? Why do you not hate Felix? You drove his friend from his door with contumely. Why do you not execrate the rustic who sought to destroy the Saviour, his child? Nay, these are virtuous and immaculate beings. I, the miserable and the abandoned, am an abortion, to be spurned at and kicked and trampled on. An abortion. The creature thinks to every person that could have shown him compassion every time he was rejected violently. His final identity is an abortion. Unwanted, discarded. Remember, this was written in the 1800s, and this line would surely have had its own impact then. The creature continues to declare that he is the true victim of all these things, and that his list of murders weigh heavily on his heart. He has decided that his purpose, to torment his creator, has been fulfilled, and there's only one task remaining. I will now read the final sentences to close out the novel. But soon, he cried with sad and solemn enthusiasm, I shall die, and what I now feel be no longer felt. Soon these burning miseries will be extinct. I shall ascend my funeral pile triumphantly and exult in the agony of the torturing flames. The light of that conflagration will fade away, my ashes will be swept into the sea by the winds. My spirit will sleep in peace, or if it thinks, it will not surely think thus. Farewell. He sprang from the cabin window as he said this, upon the ice raft which lay close to the vessel. He was soon borne away by the waves, and lost in darkness and distance. The story ends with the monster resolving to destroy himself, burning himself away until only ash remains. But you may notice we don't actually see the creature follow through. The classic element of horror stories is to resolve the narrative, but still leave some uncertainty about the monster. The one that immediately comes to mind is the ending of the original Nightmare on Elm Street that they went with. Now, over the course of the story, we've had many questions proposed by the novel, with a decent number of them resolved by the narrative. But the novel closes with the creature consumed by fire, which, if you've been keeping up, is the symbol for knowledge. So by that logic, both the maker and the made are undone by knowledge. Now, we're almost there, but this is where it gets interesting, because the question becomes, so is knowledge evil? Is it bad to learn? Because you may recall that I asked this question several weeks ago, and we've seen the damage the knowledge has inflicted. It's an interesting question, because yeah, the entire conflict is due to someone's hubris, using knowledge to play God. The creature's suffering is derived from understanding. He learns what he lacks. The fall of man in Paradise Lost happens because they eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Shelley was a proponent of the Romantic movement. She saw the beauty of nature destroyed in favor of industrial progress. Her story describes a man that defiles nature in service of his own ambition. A man that misuses and abuses everyone around him because he's better than them. That all sounds like a strong condemnation of seeking out knowledge. But remember, Shelley was taught all these things. She was able to use her voice to write a renowned novel because she was educated. Look again at the story. Victor has knowledge, yes, but he doesn't have anyone that guides him. He chooses to remain ignorant of the dark and claim that he is the light. Every person that rejects the monster does so because they're ignorant of the creature's innocence. They see his hideous visage, how different he is, and prescribe evil to things they don't understand. The one person to give him any modicum of care is the blind, wise old man. Knowledge and wisdom do not equate, but a fool rejects each in equal measure. We see that Walton, after learning about Victor's life, changes the direction he's heading, both literally and figuratively. He chooses life over glory. It's not knowledge that's evil. It's the casual cruelty of the ignorant and irresponsible actions of the educated that leads to all of this suffering. What would have happened if the creature had just one person actually show him affection of any kind? Would he have learned to forgive rather than avenge? Now, was that what Shelley intended the message to be? Maybe. But art like this is subject to interpretation. As the audience, we are required to view media and digest it. We shouldn't simply reflect what we receive, but rather sift through it, try to understand it. I love this novel. There are themes and elements I didn't even get to address. They hold just as much merit as the ones I focused on. It's a beautiful piece, and I'm just grateful to have had the chance to talk about it. I'd love to hear any analysis or questions you may have about the story. Feel free to also leave any suggestions for what to cover next. The next episode is one I had not been anticipating, but it's going to be a quick one looking at the difference between Del Toro's Frankenstein and what we just read. As always, thank you for watching, and until next time, Carpe Diem.